Here we go then. A unexpected live, but one that we had to do. Some breaking news coming out of Norwich City this evening that 4 players that have been part of this campaign this time around will be leaving after the Barnsley game on Saturday, and big players as well. Players that have played a massive part not only this season but in the last decade of Norwich City. Mario Vrancic, Alex Tettey, Xavi Quintilla and Ollie Skipp will all be departing. 2 because their contracts are up, 2 of course returning to their parent clubs. Thanks to everyone who's tuning in already. This could be an emotional one for a lot of people. I know there's a lot of massive Alex Tettey and Mario Vrancic fans out there. And I'm sure that there'll be a lot of people who are really disappointed to see this news. Maybe expected, but even so, when the time comes, and the time is now, it's still fairly difficult to take for a lot of people. It's me, James E. Good to see you already, my friend. Sad to see Mario leave, as is James. I'm sad to see every single one of these guys leave. I think Xavi Quintilla, if you would have said a few weeks ago that people would have been disappointed to see him leave, you wouldn't have believed them because he hadn't played a massive part in this season. But the goal against QPR and then an absolutely stunning strike at the weekend against Reading has kind of almost cemented him into a little part of Norwich City history, hasn't it? So even with Quintilla, who, I mean, we'll get onto it properly later. I don't think we'll be seeing Quintilla again, despite him, returning. I think the Ollie Skipp situation is slightly different, but I think we've seen the last of Xavi Quintilla, or we will have seen the last of him come this weekend. Even then, you knew this might play. So, there we go. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Blur Boy, all the way from Florida. Simon, good to see you. He's in Norfolk, as am I, Simon. Hope you're good, my friend. Matt says Xavi was just starting to shine. Right, let's start with the news then. Thanks to all of you who are tuning in. If you haven't already seen, this was the paragraph that Norwich City fans were met with earlier on. Norwich City will bid an emotional farewell to long-serving midfielders Alex Tettey and Mario Vrancic when their respective contracts expire this summer. Cherished by City fans around the globe, Tete's journey in yellow and green began in the summer of 2012 when he joined from French side Rennes for an undisclosed fee. 9 years and 262 Norwich appearances later, the Norwegian has since gone on to experience 3 promotions to the Premier League. 9 years and 3 promotions. That's an extraordinary hit rate. There's very few players who play in the English pyramid that will experience 3 promotions with the same club as well. I mean, Alex Tettey has had such a roller coaster ride. You look back at players like Wes Hoolahan and Russell Martin. Alex Tettey's been through that, and also the Farke era as well. So there's been a real up and down period for Alex Tettey. Mario Vrancic, of course, he joined from German outfit Darmstadt in the summer of 2017, becoming the first overseas signing following Daniel Farke's appointment. He's gone on to feature 133 occasions for the club, scoring 17 goals, including a series of eye-catching and match-winning strikes across his 2 championship-winning seasons. Vrancic was, as they say there, the first overseas signing for Daniel Farke. Almost started the changing of guard at Norwich City into this new way of working. And I mean, I look back at Mario Vrancic's first season at Norwich City. I really didn't rate him. I thought he's too slow. He's laboured on the ball. He lost out in possession. And as Farke ball evolved, so did Mario Vrancic. And I mean, the 18-19 season and this season, some seriously memorable goals. I mean, Leeds away, Sheffield United, that last-minute free kick, the assist against Tottenham and the goal against Tottenham. The assist never counted because of VAR. We won't talk about that. This season, the strike against Sheffield Wednesday, like so many goals. I mean, that his highlight reel will look absolutely extraordinary from his time at Norwich City. Yeah, Neil, the blonde hair when he first came, I remember it well. And I remember some fairly juicy chants from the terraces as well regarding Mario Vrancic's hair. I said it on Twitter earlier. it took me a while to fall in love with Mario Vrancic. I didn't see him as my type of player. I quite like a hustle bustle, Oliver Skipp almost midfielder. That's what I want to be seeing from my midfielders. But Mario Vrancic opened my eyes to the cultured curler of his left foot. I mean, that left foot can do some glorious things. It really can. And once I had fallen in love with Mario Vrancic, football becomes such a beautiful game. The way he effortlessly strokes the ball about the pitch just orchestrates the game with such ease. And that's the tail end of that 2018-19 season, particularly for me, leads away when we went there and just absolutely steamrolled them. It was one of the most majestic performances. I mean, the free kick to set things off, and then him and Tom Tribal, I remember it so vividly. You had the rough and tumble of Tribal and just the glorious, slick performance of Mario Vrancic. Just a really sensational footballer, and just plays the game in the way that Daniel Farke likes it to be played. And that's why he's, lasted 4 seasons, both in the Championship and in the Premier League. Not many of them early signings have stood the test of time. I mean, you look back off the top of my head, I'm not going to be able to remember them all. Marcel Franke was in there. Philip Heiser, I think, was in there. Who else? You had Leitner. Was he that early on, or was he the following season? Leitner, of course, has sort of been frozen out. So Farke obviously rates Mario Vrancic, incredibly highly. And so do the majority of Norwich fans. It's rare as well for James Husband, another one. Yeah, the less said about him, the better. And as Cameron says, the Bosnian Beckham. He was, wasn't he? I mean, he still is the Bosnian Beckham. Just, reminds me of how David Beckham played the game. Not a whole lot of pace, well, hardly any pace, but just gets the job done in a really effective manner. Which is absolutely brilliant. Chaz Tats, have you got the answers for the crossword yet? I have actually, mate. There was a few I needed help with, but me and my mum got it cracked yesterday. Bank holiday Monday, crossword in the Times, absolutely perfect day. And of course, Alex Tettey, who hasn't featured too much this season, but the quotes from Stuart Webber that we can see here just sums him up perfectly. Both Alex and Mario have made significant contributions to the football club, and this is a sad day for all connected with Norwich City. For Alex to have achieved what he has done over his 9-year spell at the club is phenomenal. He will, of course, be rightly remembered as a Norwich City legend. We will always have a role for Alex at this football club, and should he wish, we will help and support him with his next stage of his career whenever he feels the time is right. Mario will rightly be remembered for his many moments of magic. He's a top professional, and I don't think anyone will forget his goals against Sheffield Wednesday, Blackburn, and in the title clincher at Aston Villa. We knew we were signing a top professional 4 years ago, and he's certainly surpassed what we all expected of him. Just wonderful quotes from Stuart Webber, and I think we've seen a lot of players under the Stuart Webber regime leave who we all, love dearly. Wes Hoolahan, Russell Martin from that era. And 2 more players here in Vrancic and Tete. Tete particularly, who, hasn't played a massive role this season, but will have played a massive role behind the scenes in the dressing room. And I think the good thing with Norwich City is with the vast majority of legends, and Tete is regarded as a legend and should be regarded as a legend, they will be treated well after, whether that's in a new role at the club, whether it's coaching badges, whether Alex goes on to find another club, I'm not so sure. But I think we can all, sleep safe in the knowledge that both of them will be welcomed back absolutely whenever they'd like. Carl Skillings, Tete will be remembered as a legend on par with Wes, in my opinion. I don't know if he's quite at Wes levels, Carl, but in terms of the impact he's had on the club, it can't be overlooked. I mean, 9 seasons for any player at any club is a phenomenal amount. You rarely get players who'll last that long. And as with Russ, and I keep alluding to Russ, Tete has managed to get in every single manager's side, whether it's Alex Neil, whether it's Daniel Farke, whether it's Chris Hughton, any of the managers over the past decade, Tete has managed to get in, and that shows something, and also kept around the club, and that's important, right? I keep saying it, but although he hasn't played a massive role on the pitch this season, let's not underestimate the role off the pitch. a very experienced character who suffered many promotions and relegations at the football club. That kind of experience can't necessarily be bought. Especially, he knows the inner workings of Norwich City. So for the young lads like Big Andy and Josh Martin and Ballymumba, them types of players, they'd be looking up to Alex Tettey. He will be the father figure amongst that group. And promotions and the work in which has been done under Fark wouldn't have necessarily happened if it wasn't for Alex Tettey. So we have to thank him for that. On the Paul City, love the name, by the way, Paul. MK Dons for Tete. I mean, I'm sure Russ would love it. I know that Mario, I think Mario and Alex were commenting on Russ's Instagram a few weeks ago saying, if you need some midfielders, mate, you know where we are. So I think they knew their time was up a little while back. But Russ is building a brilliant squad at MK Dons. And he talks, doesn't he? Russell talks about the experience in the dressing room. He's got it with Cameron Jerome. If Alex Tettey wants another club and he's willing to drop to League One pay, I suspect there might be a little calling. I genuinely think, I know MK Dons aren't the most well-received club across the country, but imagine if Mario and Tete both go to MK Dons, along with Cameron Jerome, who's there, Andrew Sermon's there, who else is there? Louis Thompson. It would basically be Norwich City second team. I think there might be a few Norwich fans popping up the road to Milton Keynes if that were to happen. Right, let's talk about Oliver Skipp and Xavi Quintilla as well. So much to get through. Thank you for all your comments. I'll try and get through them in a bit. Now, not only have we got the heartbreak of Vrancic and Tete leaving, we've got the heartbreak of Oliver Skipp and Xavi Quintilla returning. Now, I think this is a slightly more complex situation, so hang in there. This was the statement on the club website. Norwich City can also confirm that loan players Ollie Skipp and Xavi Quintilla will return to their respective parent clubs, Tottenham Hotspur and Villarreal, following the conclusion of City's final fixture of the campaign to Barnsley. Webber added, from day one, Xavi has always been here with a smile on his face and has delivered when called upon. He leaves us as a champion and he will no doubt go on to have a great career in the game. Oliver has been tremendous for us this season and words can't explain how grateful we are for his contribution. We must also thank Steve Hitchin and Daniel Levy at Tottenham for allowing us to develop not only a top player, but a top person. It goes without saying, let me take this banner off the screen, we would of course love to work with Oliver again in the future, but either way, he'll be remembered at this club for a long time. That quote is just such a tease, isn't it? It goes without saying, we'd of course love to work with Oliver again in the future, but either way, he'll be remembered at this club for a long time. Now, of course, this was obviously going to happen. Xavi Quintilla, I think there was a clause in there that if he'd made a certain amount of appearances, we would have had to sign him. That obviously hasn't been met. I'm not sure if that's bang on. It sounds as if we're definitely not bringing Quintilla back. And to be honest, I get that. Once Sam McCallum returns, he would have then been probably third or fourth choice left back behind Yanulis, McCallum, Jakob Sorensen, who can also play in that role. So I don't think it would have made much sense to have Quintilla in there as well. And he would have cost a couple of million. So better use of finances. Now, Oliver Skipp is the fascinating one here, and there's so many layers to this discussion. Will Norwich City want to bring Oliver Skipp back in the Premier League? Undoubtedly. He has been a shining light this season, and it was fascinating to hear on the 24-hour live stream we did, whether it was Dean Ashton, Grant Holt, Russell Martin, whoever it was, Gunny, every single one of them people said, if you could keep Emi Buendia, Max Aarons, Oliver Skipp, or Todd Cantwell, and you could only keep one, which would it be? Every single one answered Oliver Skipp. He is a truly sensational midfielder. And I know, I mean, he scored, one goal and maybe a couple of assists. You can't go into stats with this man. He has revolutionised, and I don't use that word lightly, the way that Norwich City have played football this season. He's given such a barrier to the defence, who are now allowed to get forwards a little more. And they were always allowed, but you were left exposed, weren't you? Whether it was Yanulis or Quintilla down the left, or Jamal before, or Max Aarons down the right, they were getting forwards, but then there was no one in behind. Oliver Skipp just comes in there and mops things up really beautifully. So look, I think if we were to bring Oliver Skipp back, it would be a genuinely massive step towards Premier League survival. I think it's that important. The money that we've got to spend wouldn't find an Oliver Skipp. It just wouldn't. So unless we bring him back, there's going to be a downgrade in midfield, and ideally, you don't want that. When Jose Mourinho was at Tottenham, the quotes that he'd came out with, and he liked Oliver Skipp. He loved Oliver Skipp. He played him, and it was public knowledge that Jose Mourinho liked Oliver Skipp. Whoever now goes in the Tottenham role, whether it's Ryan Mason or someone else, would they want Oliver Skipp? Now, if I'm Ollie Skipp and if I'm Tottenham and if I'm Ollie Skipp's agent, I think I'd be wanting Ollie Skipp to stay at Norwich City for another season. I really do. From a development point of view, if he's going back to Spurs, I can't see him playing week in, week out. Now, I might be wrong. I don't know the Tottenham situation as well as a lot will. I guess Marcus here is saying Oliver Skipp will replace Harry Winks at Spurs next season. Look, Tottenham are wanting to get into the top four. They're a top six side. Is Ollie Skipp at that level yet? Possibly. But I think I'd be, if as I say, if I was Ollie Skipp or if I was his agent, I would be going, look, just get yourself a guaranteed season of Premier League football. And that will be a guarantee at Norwich City. If he were to stay, he would be the first name on the team sheet every single week. It just makes sense. Even if Norwich City had to play 100% of the wages and a loan fee, I think it would be well worth it. Now, will it happen? I would say it's more unlikely than it is likely at the moment. But I think it would be absolutely crucial for Norwich City's in the Premier League. And by the sounds of that Stuart Webber quote, it goes without saying we'd of course love to work with Oliver again. He and Daniel and the other board members will be doing everything in their willpower to bring him back. Now, of course, he's also injured now. Now, I don't think the severity of that injury's been released, but it looked quite serious. I saw Michael Bailey tweeting it might be a broken foot, which would keep him out for, I assume, the whole of pre-season. I don't know whether that changes things, but keep your ears out on this Oliver Skipp story, because I think it will be one that develops and grows and gains traction. It's going to be a really interesting summer, away from Oliver Skipp as well, with recruitment and with selling of players, because we've got hundreds of millions of pounds worth of talent and assets that big clubs will be sniffing about in. How will Norwich City deal with it? I cannot wait to see how the squad on the first game of the season could look completely different. But only time will tell. Sam says Ollie Skipp should definitely be staying. Would be so good for his development, but Daniel Levy won't let it happen. I don't know. I mean, does it come down to Daniel Levy? Surely the manager has a big say in it. I mean, any manager would want Oliver Skipp at their disposal, but we've seen so many times, haven't we, with young talent, it's such fine margins between them really becoming a top player and just becoming a sort of an average Premier League player who maybe sits on the bench of a top 10 club. And I genuinely think Oliver Skipp could become one of the best Premier League midfielders. I genuinely believe it. But this next couple of seasons, kind of in his early 20s, will be so crucial for development, and they have to get it right. This is a name I knew was going to pop up, and I'm so glad you brought it up, Lou. Harrison Reed. Yeah, of course, he's coming down with Fulham. We know all about Harrison Reed. I like Harrison Reed. He's not Oliver Skipp, but who is? Would he be in the price range? Possibly. Certainly an option, and I'm sure we'll see more of his name. I kind of also think that might be a case of just putting sort of, 2 and 2 together. But there'll be a lot of that. Another one, Ethan Ampadu, who Norwich City were in for before Oliver Skipp. He was their top target, and of course went to Sheffield United, where it didn't work out for him. So there are names that I'm sure will crop up. For me, it's Ollie Skipp over Ampadu, over Reed, over anyone. So there we go. In terms of Javi Quintilla, Norwich City best moments says Javi and Oliver both good players and want them both to stay. I want Oliver Skipp to stay. I like Javi Quintilla. He's definitely not Premier League level. I mean, he's been suspect in a few championship games. I mean, I look back to the Watford game where Ismail Assar was up against him and he was really run ragged in that one. And there'll be plenty more wingers at Sarr's level in the Premier League who Quintilla just simply wouldn't be able to cope with. But some of these loan signings, I mean, I look back at Henry Lansbury and Danny Pacheco, players like that, right, who do their job and the time's up. And you move on and you go out on a high. I think football fans and just people in general are very bad at going out when things are good, and they just stay and they stay and they stay, and then the legacy's gone and it's all ruined. Javi Quintilla, brilliant season, done a job, scored some cracking goals. The free kick against Reading was beautiful. Can he go to the next level with Norwich City? I don't think he can, but seems like a lovely fella who's clearly had an impression in the dressing room. Good bit of recruitment, happy days, move on. I think it would be silly to look to sign him permanently. And by the sounds of things, Norwich City were never interested in making that happen. So there we go. But it's been was I expecting this news? I think I was expecting the news of Vrancic and Tete. It was very telling when they both came on as substitutes. Against Reading in like the 85th minute or whatever. You were like, yeah, that's their farewell. I think the real crying shame here is the fact that we won't be able to give them a send-off. That's a real shame. And I think with all of the amazing pictures and videos, you know, in the last few weeks and just the whole season in general, really, that's always been the twinge of regret that we haven't been able to be there. But I think this one will particularly hurt. And I feel sad for the players as well, like particularly Tete, who spent, you know, near enough a decade at the football club, to leave in an empty stadium at Barnsley. And it's a bit naff, isn't it? I mean, that doesn't really feel like a hero's welcome, but hopefully they'll be able to sort something maybe next season. I don't know. It would be amazing to see Vrancic and Tete go to MK Dons and just pump Ipswich. That would be particularly joyful. We'll get onto things like this in future videos, Sam, about other players ahead of next season. I think there'll be a fair few outgoings, I must admit. You've got the likes of Onel, Stiepermann. Who else can you add to that list? Other players in that kind of ilk that have done the Championship, maybe on the fringes, done the Premier League or maybe on the fringes. Can they do the Prem again? I don't know. I think there's a list of players there who might be seeing the exit this summer. Not that I know anything, and not that I'm ahead of the game. Just my opinion. So there we go. Here's another one: Puemezwa Boheta, Adam Eder, players like that. Are they quite at Premier League level? I'm not sure, but we'll get onto that in future videos. But I thought I'd just drop on here tonight to talk about Mario Vrancic and Alex Tettey, because they've been absolutely wonderful servants. And of course, Xavi Quintilla and Ollie Skipp, who've played really pivotal parts during a brilliant campaign. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a wonderful evening. We've got lots more content coming this week in the lead up to the final game of the season against Barnsley, in which there's literally nothing to play for, but it'll be a bit of a party. So happy days. Have a lovely evening, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you all again very soon. Bye-bye.